Let's talk about the pilot episode of HBO's Watchmen series, specifically titled It's Summer and We're Running Out of Ice. Angela investigates the attempted murder of a fellow officer. The lord of the country estate receives an anniversary gift from his loyal servants. Thanks, IMDb. That was super not helpful.
Why do you keep calling it Watchmen, huh? Why can't you call it Watch People, Sam?
Why isn't there a scene
You're
where
smiling like you're proud of what you said.
Why isn't there a scene where Jennifer Lawrence was like, women are always saving the day over here? Why isn't it called Watch Women?
That was one of the worst lines I've ever heard. And also,
you know what? I'm going to be honest. It didn't bother me. Because she was right. The women do normally save the day there. So
first time I heard it, I was like, yeah. And then I watched back and I was like, no.
Watch back as in you saw Dark Phoenix again?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
I did.
We're watching Humans
You own
together.
it. You have the Blu-ray.
No, but I did see it twice.
But speaking of Blu-ray, I do want to ask, did you guys see the Watchmen movie? You have.
Yes.
You probably have too because you're doing DC Daily. You've seen it?
The movie?
Yes.
Yeah, and I actually just reread the novel as well.
Same.
Because I hadn't read it in like a decade.
Yeah, I read it as like a teenager. And all I remember from that was like, oh my goodness, so much violent. And it's like, oh my God, why are they drawing boobies? And I was like, all right.
Do you remember how long it takes you to read his...
the interstitial stuff?
Yo.
All the files and whatnot?
It's so good, but I'm slow, and you guys know I'm blind, and that print could not be smaller.
It is pretty small.
It was like
Glasses.
in my face.
Get glass. You can't blame books.
His journal is... He writes too small.
He writes the normal
It's
size.
type. It's type, but type bigger.
Okay, well, you guys can let us know
Yeah.
if they should type
you.
bigger in books. They have large print books, so we'll get you a couple of those. They have large print.
Or
We'll get
get
you
glasses.
some of those. Or glasses.
That doesn't seem like a reasonable request.
We'll just print books bigger. That's what we'll do.
All the people.
But
yeah.
with that, I do want to start off with Roxy. You saw this pilot. It aired Sunday on HBO. I want to know from you, what did you think? Overall thoughts. We're going to get into some questions and some nitty gritty, but overall thoughts.
You know, I watched it live, and then I went to the people, aka Twitter, and people seemed overwhelmingly thrilled with this. Like it was the best pilot they had ever seen. And I think it was totally solid good. But I didn't think it was the best thing I've ever seen. I'm a huge Damon Lindelof fan, and of his pilots, I think Lost is the best pilot of all time.
It's really good.
So I was expecting this to be, I think that the first 5 minutes were the strongest part of the whole pilot. So it was, I just wanted more throughout. Also, I'm apparently an ignorant person because I didn't know about the 1921 Tulsa riot.
Most people don't.
so
On purpose.
I
It's not
don't
talked
know.
about.
I know just the name of it. I didn't know.
So
what
I didn't
happened.
know.
Yeah.
So that part, it was almost hard for me to go from that to the rest of it and not just be thinking about like I wanted to pause it and do research,
Yeah.
which kind of was detrimental to the rest of my viewing experience of a Watchmen show because I was like thinking about the world that we live in, and that shook me. I think that I am really excited based off of the final thing that we saw, scenes from future episodes or whatever. However, it's not scenes from next
It's
week.
like what's coming.
What's coming, yeah. Looks incredible. The performances were awesome. The ending scene and then the very ending moment, the imagery of that with the blood drip, fantastic. So there was nothing about this that I thought was off. It just was not Damon Lindelof Lost to me.
Gotcha. DJ,
Yes.
you were not excited for this pilot coming out. You poo-pooed it.
I felt like it just didn't look like Watchmen to me. Also, I didn't need a Watchmen show. I didn't need it, you know. And like a lot of things on HBO, which I think I'd qualified when we were talking about it, because at this point there's been a couple things like Barry. I was like, it looks fine, and I ended up really liking Barry. You know what I mean? And so I think maybe going in with lower expectations, I was genuinely surprised with how much, even outside of it being related to Watchmen, this was up my alley. In fact, I think it's to its benefit that it doesn't really feel like Watchmen. It really creates its own. I was reading an interview with Damon Lindelof, and he mentioned, he was talking about the characters, and he talked about Ozymandias and Laurie and Dr. Manhattan, and he's like, I think if you're making a Watchmen thing, you need those three, and if I had any more, it would feel like these new characters are stumbling their way into a Watchmen 2, as opposed to telling its own story. And I really like the story he's telling here. There's a lot to unpack, even in the scene where the cop is trying to get his gun unlocked. There's just so much it starts off with the guy listening to hip hop, and there's just so much to unpack just in that one scene. And I thought it really smartly navigated the world it created, and it used the raining squids just to add a sense of like mystery to keep you going. But like the nature of who these masked figures are within this structure. I like the fact that it's not like New York or LA, it's Tulsa. I like the idea of grounding it in real world atrocities, like real world, like it really adds an extra layer to this world. And this idea of like, they don't like just like the original Watchmen was like this conservative dystopia. This is like a liberal utopia, almost. You know what I mean? There's just enough there that's like it's not going to be great. You know what I mean? Like the Seventh Cavalry is still around, and also it's just understanding. He shows that he really understands the world because one, it fucking blows. Like the Watchmen universe is number one, the last place you want to. Maybe the Mad Max universe is worse. You know what I mean? Like maybe if you had to choose like a fictional place to live, Watchmen is near the bottom. And also understanding that Rorschach is not a great role model.
I really like that they immediately right out the gates they tell you that like, yeah, you liked when he kicked ass.
Yeah, and it's not that he's a bad person, but he was a fascist.
But I mean, he's kind of a bad person. When you hear his inner thoughts, and he describes most of the people he sees as pigs. And he specifically targets the immigrants that are in the city too.
Yeah.
He's not a good person. I'll put it out there. But for myself, I was excited for this show. But my problem is with David Lindelof, because I thought Lost was amazing. Did they stick the landing? They got as close as they could because they started just throwing out as many ideas as they wanted. I know about the Hurley bird. Anybody else remember that? They're like, wait a second, Hurley, did that thing just say your name? We never got back to that.
4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42.
Oh yeah, that was in my head for
Wait,
ever.
maybe the bird was telling him like, you're going to be the one that runs the island later.
Spoilers! Haven't gone there yet.
Also, that smoke monster dough.
Oh yeah, I loved it. Hey, I ate
So
all
many
that
other
up.
things. But Leftovers stuck the ending hard.
I couldn't finish it.
think so?
I couldn't finish it because I couldn't.
I've just seen Leftovers.
I watched the first season. I watched a good chunk of the second season. He's missing out.
You would love that show.
I heard the first season's rough to get through.
No.
It is.
Okay.
I mean, DJ, this show, you love this show.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
But I was nervous about it going into Watchmen, so I'm pleasantly surprised of how well they adapted it. I appreciate that they grounded it with a real world scenario, and also just the more you start learning about Tulsa, being like they called it like the Black Wall Street of the time. Yeah. A lot of wealthy Black Americans lived there, and because of that, poor white people there were racist, and they did an absolute atrocity, and now we just don't talk about it. It definitely wasn't taught. I don't remember being taught that when I was in school.
Well, I was actually talking to a lot of my friends about it who knew about it, and I said, "How did you know about it?" And they said, "My grandparents," or things like that. I haven't heard one person who was like, "Yeah, in school in class they taught me this."
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
my understanding it's specifically
omitted.
It's purposely not.
And hundreds of people dead and thousands of people hospitalized.
Yeah,
I mean,
millions of dollars.
And I have
damages.
never heard of this.
Yeah.
For me, though, as the episode progressed, when it came to the world building, super interesting. I like that there is enough mystery there, but I like all the characters and I like all the actors that you're keeping me. Like with Ozymandias, they're not saying that that's who it is. They haven't addressed him as, I was going to say Jeremy Irons. They haven't called him Jeremy Irons. They haven't called him Ozymandias, and they haven't called him Adrian Veidt or Veidt. I've heard it a million ways.
I say Veidt.
I say Veidt as well. So we'll call him that for now.
Isn't it crazy when you've read something and you just pronounce it the one way and then somebody
Count
else says
Olaf.
it differently?
I apparently was saying that wrong in my brain the entire time, and all the kids' names. Hermione was one that took me forever.
Hermione was for a lot of people was challenging.
What were you guys doing?
It was just
Hermione. It's spelled like Hermione. You know what I mean?
So you're like, something British or witchy. I don't know what it is. But as we're going through, I like that they're able to take enough of the elements from the comic book and just use them as set deck. They're able to be like, Vietnam's a state, and that's just what it is. And like you see posters of squids, or the squids are raining. And we'll get into that in a second because I want to ask you guys some questions. But by the end of it, the mystery with the old man that we see throughout the episode is really compelling. I thought Don Johnson gave a great performance. I think Regina King is just, it's Regina King. So she did an amazing job as Angela. Also, Sister Night.
Yeah.
I think she's
amazing.
I think she's the best actress on the show. And that's on a show of multi-Oscar winner performers. I think she is so fierce.
Yeah.
She is so good.
Yeah, she's really great. Actually, I like Don Johnson a lot. I like what the line that they like, because he's like crazy likable. But just there's those little seeds around the corner, and then the way it ends, it's like, oh, there's stuff we don't know about this guy.
So I didn't catch this, so it's worth mentioning for people who may not have caught it. I didn't catch the parallels of the kid watching the movie where you flip it on its head, where it's the man in white and the man in black, but the man in black is actually the one that's the good guy, and the man in white is the one who's stealing cattle. And by the end of it,
he was the town's sheriff.
The town sheriff, and so that's what's mirrored at the end. I totally missed
Which,
that.
by the way, the person that caught in that movie, that's a historical figure
Bass
as well.
Reeves, who arrested like 3,000 people, even his own son.
Yeah, and there's an apocryphal story that he's the basis for Lone Ranger. He's not, but there are a lot of similarities there, so it's not like completely unwarranted.
Can I ask you guys about something that you both have brought up so far that I will say slightly confused me about the episode? The raining of the squid. What exactly is happening here?
We'll do that as a segue, because actually I think I want to ask you guys that as well. I have my theory. DJ, do you have a theory for what it is? Because I have a
theory.
Yeah, so they mention when Looking Glass interrogates the person that they capture.
of the 7th Cavalry.
Of the 7th Cavalry. He's like, do you think that the dimensional rifts are part of the way of the government trying to control you? So I think what the story this is basically supposed to be rolling fallout from the squid monster that is basically...
From the comic, not from the movie.
Yeah, not from the movie, thank God.
Which is kind of cool that they're doing the squid.
that.
Yeah, I mean,
Instead of the
if you just saw the movie and now you're watching this, I'm sorry, but go read the comic anyway. It's amazing. So I think I think what will probably be explained is that this was probably engineered as a way to keep, because eventually people are going to forget, you know what I mean, and move on and go back to their petty. We need to blow each other up, and so I think this is probably engineered to be like, but remember the aliens. Don't forget about the aliens. You know what I mean?
I think
This
so
is
too.
engineered by who?
By Ozymandias.
Yeah, and possibly Robert Redford. So I went through all of the documents that HBO released on their website. It's called PTpedia, like PD, like a name. And if you can read 4 documents, and some of them are newspaper headlines, and some have to do with Ozymandias' presumed death.
Yeah.
That basically he just disappeared for a while, and the government was looking for him, and nobody could find him. So they had to say that we're presuming him dead because we can't say if we give up. It's suspicious because there's this whole like conspiracy that Ozymandias helped fund Robert Redford to become president, which was fun. That was a fun tease at the end of the comic, and now the joke not the joke, but in Watchmen, Nixon runs for like 7 terms.
Yeah.
But Redford's been in office since
Then,
89 to 85 until 2019. That's feels longer in my head.
Yeah.
Maybe
And then
not.
What was the racist reference of the Redford
Basically
reparations?
Yeah,
What was it called? Redfarations?
Yeah, something like that. So those are, I guess, just supposed to be he instituted reparations. You know what I mean? And that's what plays into this kind of being like a liberal counterpoint to where the comic was. You know what I mean?
But in regards to the squid, yes, I think it's a cover because it's a good way to also keep people in constant fear that the big siren blows and you have to pull over and you have to stop working. But in those documents, they talk about that a lot of theories came out. Also, this is about the watch batteries. A lot of theories came out to why the portal opened, and either Ozymandias or somebody kind of engineered that possibly the technology they had at the time was just technology, nothing specific, was responsible for opening the rift. So basically everyone ditched computers, ditched all the high-tech stuff that they had, and
Because they don't know what's dangerous or not.
they don't know. So they are just now starting to use computers again. That's why they have beepers, and that's why they had like he's on the radio and he has like that like buzzer to get his gun out. Like it's more primitive.
By the way, Panda's
great.
my favorite. I think my favorite addition to this world.
He's really and
Panda's wild.
the
Yeah.
Russian guy who's on the police force.
Yeah,
whoever that
yeah,
is.
yeah.
But and that's why the batteries, when they say they're Manhattan made, anything specifically coming out of Manhattan they don't want to use anymore.
Yeah.
So possibly Tulsa is like maybe taking the place of Manhattan, like in a sense that maybe it's more the prosperous
interesting.
like cities. That's why we're getting so much focus on it. And also my theory that I sit on New Rock Stars, and you guys can watch Rogue Theory whenever that comes out. My theory is that to send the squid to New York, they had to use Dr. Manhattan's like energy signature, and that included tachyons, aka make-believe time travel particles. I think the storms give off a little bit of that, so that we know that Dr. Manhattan's on Mars. Maybe he can't see what's happening on Earth in like certain spurts because there's just that energy constantly going off now. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he's on Mars just kind of like fucking around building sandcastles, but on and he can't see what Ozymandias is planning. Can't see what the world's doing, how it's changed, how it's evolved, or whatever. I think that's a tactic to like keep one over on a Superman.
Do you think that there's any way that he's involved with the squids raining?
Maybe he's just hawking them. Maybe he's like making a bunch of them out of sand, and he's just
almost like a never forget. Like he's up on Mars and is making it rain squids.
The only thing is that when he leaves the comic at the end and in the movie, he always just is like, you know what, deuces. I feel I'm super fucking burnt out on all of you.
Yeah.
And he says nothing
but he's
ever
been there
ends.
for a minute now.
Yeah, and but
34
Well,
years.
but see, that's the thing. In the comic, he's going to another galaxy.
Yeah.
He's,
Galaxy.
yeah.
I thought it was universe.
No, he's on Mars.
No, he says he's going to go to another galaxy.
Yeah, so theoretically, him being on Mars means he's come back from his sabbatical.
Yeah, I mean, vacations get boring.
Which I'm going to be honest, if I had footed, it's like, Dr. Manhattan's back on Mars. Like, no.
Not again.
Please go back.
But yes, also that leads to another question I want to ask. Ozymandias.
Yeah.
What do you think he's doing? I mean, so he's
Those are
doing
definitely
Dave.
like robots or clones or something, right?
So he cloned Bubastis in the comic.
Oh, that's right. So they got to be like clones or
like
something.
weird, messed up clones or robots. That's also fun.
Yeah.
You know, like, but they, someone threw out the idea that they don't eat. That's why, like, he only took a bite of. Go away. Like, could be a rich person thing that he doesn't want to eat the whole cake.
Well, and
or
also,
it just doesn't taste like food. So he's like, please get this away from me.
because the way Jeremy Irons plays it is like he's like it's really good acting from him because it's like
He's excellent.
I don't think he liked it.
Mm-hmm. Also, in those documents you read, they talk about the blue wave that happened, like basically like all red states kind of just disappeared basically, and everyone started voting more liberal after the attacks with the Squid. But also they mentioned that in the 90s, Night Owl and who's the woman that he's with?
Silk Spectre.
Silk Spectre changes her name to the comedian after her. Yeah. Oh, there's some.
Well, because also in the show, her
Silk
last name.
Spectre changes her name?
Yeah,
if I'm reading it correctly.
And in the show, it's Lori Blake. She changed her last name to be the comedian's last name.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack with that, but they went out and started fighting crime and they got arrested.
Yeah.
So and then from there, it sparked another look at vigilantes, and I think that's what's basically you can kind of extrapolate that's why cops are dressed like this now.
Well, yeah, and also they imply in the show that there was I think it was called the White Night, is what they say, when basically a bunch of cops were murdered, and so now they all wear masks to disguise their identity.
And it's interesting that Judd does not wear one.
Well, I mean, but they also counterpose that with him putting on his uniform, which was almost like doesn't disguise his identity, but it is like his costume.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys think about the mask that the man in the car who ends up, the Rorschach mask that he ends up wearing? What did you guys think? Why has Rorschach become like this white supremacist seeming?
I think it makes so much sense because you look at because he released his journal, and they in their little like white supremacist speech, they directly quote his journal, so people have access to it. And even though I don't think Rorschach is like one of those like libertarians that would like, no, I'm not like he wouldn't say he's racist, like he wouldn't support these people, but 1,000% people would like this would
hear that
like would grow around that idea. I think it's such a good like, because I was reading a review of the Watchmen movie that I thought made a really good point about how you read Watchmen and it becomes very clear that Alan Moore fucking hates superheroes, just hates the idea of it. And Zack Snyder loves him. Like, Zack Snyder doesn't get that at all. Like, he thinks Rorschach's great. You know what I mean? And so this goes back to the idea of, like, no, Rorschach is an interesting character. He's well written. But he's not a good dude. You know what I mean?
He does
super not a good
cool
dude.
stuff. In
Good
the
and
sense
compared to the comedian, but not good in general.
Different devils.
And kind of, depending on, talking about different devils, kind of good compared to Ozymandias. Kind of good compared to Dr. Manhattan, depending on
I think
your
Dr.
sliding
Manhattan,
scale of what people are doing. You know what I mean?
Silk Spectre, probably the new one, is probably the most innocent.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Manhattan is the best of those other ones that you named.
I mean, he sees genocide and he's like, "Yep, this is the best plan," and he walks away from it.
Yeah.
Kinda.
I mean,
He
but he
obliterates
fully
people,
does, and
like-
then he kills the Rorschach to cover it up. Now,
Yeah, because Rorschach was going to expose him, Sam.
Yeah.
well, he exposes himself all the time by himself. But bing boom, blue dong,
penis.
Yeah, he's a healthy boy, healthy stock. But I did want to say from the documents they released, they said in the 90s, once those two superheroes get arrested,
Yeah.
that's when the New Frontiersman, the newspaper, releases excerpts from the journal of Rorschach. But Ozymandias does a good job of like, how can you verify that he did that at all? He's a crazy person.
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
it starts like 6 months before he disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we can try to figure out who this is, but he's a crazy person.
Yeah.
We don't have any evidence anywhere of his like.
It wouldn't take much for somebody like Ozymandias. But man, Jeremy Irons is so good casting for that.
Oh yeah, they do a good job of kind of like pushing it away and being like, guys, he was certifiably insane. Like he went to prison for it. Like why would you believe anything he's saying in this? And then of course you get the extremists who.
Yeah, I think
on.
it's a good because I think a lot of people just like people watch Fight Club and think, oh man, I should start a Fight Club. A lot of people read Watchmen like, oh, Rorschach's right, and it's like, and that's what these people are. You know what I mean?
How did you guys feel about Yahya Abdul-Mateen's character?
I mean, he's
and where we're going with him and how much he knows about.
I was distracted by how handsome he is.
he's getting
very
so
good.
much.
I was also
work.
distracted because it was like, is that Black Manta? And it's like, man, I'm glad Warner Brothers is using this guy. Like
he was in Us.
Yeah.
And he's in Matrix.
He's also in Black Mirror, the most recent season of Black Mirror. Yeah.
He's doing really well.
He's excellent.
Just as we wrap up our Watchmen talk, because there's a lot to extract out of this, I want to talk about the last scene with Judd. Don Johnson is set to be a main character in all 9 episodes of this first season. What do you think happened with Judd? Like, why was he strung up? And what do you think about the character that we've now seen? Because I think it's fair to say that we think that
Bruce Gossett Jr.
I think that he is the kid that we see in the beginning when we're in
I
Tulsa.
agree with that. Yeah.
And also, I like the note that he gets. That's watch over my son, or watch over this boy. I think it says.
Yeah.
And you get the watch in there, but also someone pointed out that note that they wrote it on was a. Basically, if you are a black man, that's how you were enlisted in the army, and that's what that paper is, certifying that you are a soldier in the U.S. Army as a person of color. So there's even more to it with that like my dad was someone who fought for our country and protected it, and now you need to help this kid out. But what do you guys think, Roxy? Do you have any theories when it comes to Judd and the old man?
Theories about why he was killed.
Why he was strung up, and also what the deal is with the.
I really am not sure. I think I think there's more to the character than we know. I'm curious about his family life as well because they seem so in support and behind him and who he's working with.
Yeah, he does blow in the middle of a dinner party, and everybody's like, "Oh well,
whatever."
Judd's gonna be Judd.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think Regina King's character Angela is very unaware of whatever his mishappenings are.
Yeah, like why wasn't she called the first night with the shooting?
Yeah, I think that she's super not in the know, which happens a lot of times with the people we're closest to. You don't see them for who they really are, but there's just no way that he was strung up for any other reason than he's doing bad shit.
Well, and there's also right before he leaves, they do this zoom in on like a picture of like a black and white picture of
him and his dad.
Or something like that, and I have a feeling that's going to factor into his relationship to whatever is happening. Because even or you get a hint of it early on when Don Johnson just does such a good job with his performance when he goes to visit the wife of the officer that's killed, and it's like he's being nice, but there's just this like, because at a certain point she starts interrogating her about like, well, did he tell people what he did? You know what I mean? And it's just vaguely threatening. You know what I mean? And so I'm interested to see, but he comes across as a person that you'd like to hang out with.
And I think he's selling out the city to something else, like to either Ozymandias or in the commercial you see that there's another business owner that could be like from another country that wants to do something with Tulsa and it has to do with the future. I'm going to guess he has something like a hand in that in some way.
I mean, the decision to go against what Panda says out loud about what it takes in order to unlock your gun it's very clear. It's made so rashly and so quickly. All of this time that we've been doing that, and just like that, we're going to turn this decision around. There's just more going on in this universe. More good guys pretending to be good that are actually bad or have ulterior motives of some sort.
Yeah, because even Sister Night, like it's treated as this great moment after this guy's interrogated. She takes him in a room and literally beats the blood and piss out of him. And they're like, "Cool, we got our." But it's like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Like that's not okay.
And like Rorschach kind of does the same thing in the comic too. It's a rough world.
Yeah,
It's hard out here for a watch.
yeah. I'm
person.
telling you, man, the Watchmen universe is one whenever you feel bad about the world we live in, just, it could be the Watchmen universe.
But what the biggest bummer, I guess, is that you can't eat the squids because they just evaporate as soon as they hit the ground. So you're not even getting anything out of it.
No, that's not true.
They just evaporate.
If they're on your windshield, you have like a 5-second grace period.
If you go, yeah. Well, how fast they
5-second rule.
Yeah, stand outside. But just put on sunglasses, idiot. Don't hurt your eyes.
Imagine
just eat
the
'em.
first time that happened. You'd be like, what?
Could you imagine if it just skipped your tongue and just went straight back in your throat?
It's an oyster now.
And you wouldn't choke because it dissolves.
Because it dissolves.
Now, with that, gang, what do you think is up with the squids raining from the sky? What do you think Ozymandias' plan is? Is he just writing a play?
Yeah.
Let us know.
Also, Danny mentions, you guys have not mentioned the owl ship. It is interesting that it looks like police forces are using the Archimedes, because that's not the owl ship, but it is definitely a ship designed with that in mind.
Oh, yeah.
And not to mention also the owl mug. So a lot of shout outs.
He's a big fan.
Night owl and
And
owl things.
The book that was written by the original Owl Man from
Owl,
the comic.
yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Owl
I
Man.
I just said it.
I'm sorry. Owl Man's.
Towel.
Towel Man's original book is in the episode, too.
Yeah, on Don
Hollis.
Johnson's desk.
Yeah.
Man, I was genuinely, like, the shootout with on the cattle field, just all the, like, I'm super interested in, like, what, like, Night's sister was raised in Vietnam, and all her kids are white, and it's just like her whole situation. It's like, hey, what is this? Like, what's your backstory?
That part, I was interested in that too.
It's like not one kid. All the.
Do you think that the kid's parents died and she adopted them?
Maybe.
Friends with, I didn't know.
Also, Panda. What's his deal?
Yeah.
Let's give me a whole episode
Why
on
does he have,
Panda.
like, such a gross head?
And nobody likes him, because
Yeah.
even Buzz Guy's like, come on, just let me have my gun, man.
Remember Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man?
Yes.
He was. That was in Doom
Panda.
Patrol.
The only thing, my only negative was
Yes.
with Looking Glass. There's a scene where he's like eating beans and watching TV. He's like, that shout out was a little too on the nose, I think.
Hey,
but I love that actor.
I do want to
Tim
know
Blake
from
Nelson?
people. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so good.
I
Have you
do-
seen
Yes.
Ballad Buster
Yeah.
Scruggs?
No.
Okay.
I just saw him though in.
He's
different
great.
way. But I do want to know
What
from
did I
you
just
guys,
see?
really quick, what you guys think about the first episode of Watchmen. We want to do reviews for this, so if you guys want to know about what we think about these when these episodes are coming out, let us know. You can get more videos right here at Only Stupid Answers, and just let us know your thoughts in the comments down below.